U.S. Farm Report at Ag Industry Day is brought to you by the Mosaic Company, creating innovative advanced crop nutrition products and practices.
Well, at this time last year, farmers in the Northern Plains had several feet of snow in their backyard, causing concerns about planting delays and a possible switch to more soybean acres. However, that is not the case this year, as Michelle Rook found out in Grand Forks, North Dakota this week at this year's CHS Ag Industry Day.
Yeah, well, what a difference a year makes. As you can see behind me, there's very little snow on the ground here in Grand Forks, as we've had a relatively open and warm winter in the Dakotas and Minnesota. And while that could mean an early start to the planting season, it's also raising concerns among the producers that we talked to about drought.
Preparations are already underway for the planting season at the Drought farm in the Red River Valley of North Dakota. And with the lack of snowfall, planting could come early.
If we don't get any more snow and with the warmer temperatures, it could be in April. I think corn could be earlier than normal. Beets, for sure, would be earlier than normal.
And that's true for other parts of the state.
There was guys putting fertilizer down in southeast North Dakota here a week ago when that warm spell came. So it does look like right now this could be one of the first years in many years that we could be in the field in April.
But does the forecast support an early spring planting season in the Northern Plains? The director of NDON shared his outlook with farmers at the CHS Ag Industry Day.
If we got a weird rain system or even a little snow in the middle of April, which isn't unusual for us, that would set people back a little bit. But the positive, because we're not starting with anything we would get would probably either melt or evaporate pretty quickly. So the odds favor most areas getting in much earlier than last year.
If that holds true, there will be a mad rush for inputs like fertilizer. A lot of product was applied last fall, which helps, but retailers say it will be tight.
We certainly have a potential for a challenge going forward. I think our system will be full as we start the spring, and we had a really good fall with a lot of tons on the ground, but still getting those resupply tons definitely can be impacted.
The potash, we don't foresee any supplies. The biggest challenge will be the logistics, and getting it up the river. And so on the phosphate side, on the other hand, we do anticipate it will be tight through spring.
With the open and warm winter, there are also some farmers worried about drought in 2024.
We got less moisture throughout the winter than average, and we went into the winter pretty dry as well. The subsoil moisture is really low right now. We haven't had enough moisture in the last couple of years to build that up.
Winters like this remind them of 2012, 1988, 1976. So yeah, they are a little bit concerned about drought.
But is it a valid concern this early in the season?
Winters are supposed to be dry, and so at the moment there's no concern. I'm forecasting it to turn dry, so I understand there probably will be concern, don't get me wrong, but as of right now, most areas really aren't doing all that bad.
And of course, all this plus grain prices are playing into farmers' planting decisions in the region. For the Droughties, they've taken wheat out of their rotation, added corn, soybeans, and edible beans.
We got into edible beans a few years back, and it's just good to have a variety of crops, and especially with the way commodity prices are headed, it's not good to have everything in one category.
Martinson says many of the farmers he works with are looking at acreage shifts.
I think we're going to see more beans in the whole state, less sunflowers, more canola, more dry edible beans, less barley, and I think wheat's going to suffer. I mean, it's just a lot of guys are pulling wheat out of their rotations because of the poor performance the market's having.
Meanwhile, Allison Thompson is working with many producers in North Dakota and Minnesota that are leaning towards more corn, but at the expense of beans.
In the last couple of years, we've had really good yields, surprisingly good yields for a lot of guys. So it's not surprising that they're leaning towards corn at this point versus soybeans. I think a lot of people up here in this neck of the woods definitely feel like we're kind of topped out on soybeans as far as yields and what they're capable of doing.
And acreage shifts are most likely to come in the fringe areas, which is generally the Northern Plains. But according to Dwayne Bussey, weather could still change some decisions.
If we have an early spring, farmers like to plant corn, and that ends up being that one extra quarter of corn. Well, that one extra quarter of corn could mean no shift at all. And really, corn can't handle that. It needs to give up some acres. That would be a very tight situation for soybeans. So to me, soybeans have to buy some acres here moving forward.
So as we always say, Mother Nature will have the final say. I'm Michelle Rook reporting for U.S. Farm Report.
Thanks, Michelle. Well, we talked about it last weekend on the show from Commodity Classic, but China said this week they are stockpiling their reserves, buying quite a bit of grain. We'll talk about it in Ag Around the World next.